The schoolhouse erupted in chaos. The gentle smiles vanished from every child's face, not replaced by rage, by disappointment, like children whose favorite game had been interrupted just before it ended. The blast from Elijah's rifle echoed through the room, bouncing off the broken walls before rolling out across the valley. Smoke drifted from the barrel. The old trapper never lowered the weapon. Get away from the hole. His voice cracked through the silence like a whip. The three men behind him spread out immediately. One was a broad-shouldered rancher carrying a double-barreled shotgun. Another wore the heavy coat of a railroad guard. The third, younger than the others, held two burning bundles of dried sage that filled the room with a sharp, bitter scent. The children recoiled, not in terror, in discomfort. They stepped backward together, shielding their faces as the smoke drifted toward them. Elijah noticed. "So," his feathered face handed, "you still hate the mountain sage." The youngest man tossed one burning bundle into the center of the classroom. The glowing herbs scattered sparks across the broken floor. A pale mist rose where the smoke touched the wet footprints. For the first time, the children began fading, not disappearing completely, growing transparent, as though the smoke made it harder for them to remain. Sarah looked toward Eleanor. Confusion filled her pale face. "Mother," she sounded frightened now. "Why does it hurt?" Eleanor took one trembling step forward. "My baby." I caught her before she could reach the opening. "They're drawing you in." Tears streamed down her face. "I know." She didn't struggle against me. She simply couldn't stop looking at the child who wore her daughter's face. Elijah finally reached us. His eyes swept across the room. "They've opened another passage." I handed him the map. He looked at it for only a moment before nodding. "I was afraid of this." "You've seen this before?" "No." He folded the map carefully, "But my grandfather did." Every eye turned toward him. He spoke quickly. "There were stories long before the miners came." He pointed toward the crack in the floor. "The mountain has veins deeper than silver." "Underground rivers?" He shook his head. "Older." Another rumble rolled beneath us. The faceless figure began reforming inside the black water. Its smooth head slowly emerged again. The bullet had done nothing. Elijah's expression darkened. "We don't fight it." "Then why are you here?" "To stop it from taking another family." He looked at Eleanor. "Especially yours." Sarah reacted and reached both hands toward her mother. "Please." Her voice trembled exactly as a living child's would. "I'm so lonely." One of the mountain men quietly lowered his shotgun. His eyes filled with tears. Elijah noticed instantly. "Samuel." Too late. The man stepped forward. "My little boy," he whispered. I looked toward the children. A small blond boy now stood among them, no older than 5. The resemblance between them was unmistakable. The man's son. Dead. Or something wearing his face. The child smiled. "You found me." Samuel dropped his weapon. For years, perhaps decades, he had carried the weight of that loss. Now it stood only a few feet away, arms reaching toward him. No lecture, no warning, no amount of reason could compete with a father's grief. He walked forward. Elijah lunged to stop him. Samuel shoved him aside. The little boy giggled. "Come play." Samuel smiled through his tears. "I've missed you." The moment his fingers touched the child's hand, the schoolhouse went silent. The boy's smile widened. Water exploded upward from the broken floor, not as a wave, as hundreds of pale arms. They seized Samuel's wrists, his legs, his shoulders. He screamed. The illusion vanished instantly. The little boy's face stretched unnaturally, becoming smooth and featureless before dissolving into black water. Samuel tried pulling free, too late. The watery hands dragged him toward the opening. The other mountain men grabbed him around the waist. I joined them. 4 grown men strained against impossible strength. For one terrifying moment, we held him. Then, the ground beneath the pit cracked farther. The floor gave way. Samuel looked directly at Elijah. His eyes were filled with absolute terror. "Don't let me." The sentence ended as the black water swallowed him whole. No splash, no struggle. He simply vanished beneath the perfectly still surface. The water settled immediately. Samuel was gone. The room remained silent. One of the children looked into the pool, then smiled. "We have another friend." The words chilled me more than Samuel's scream had. There was no hatred, no triumph, only innocent happiness. Elijah slowly removed his hat. He closed his eyes for one brief moment, then placed it back on his head. "We leave." "What about the passage?" "It isn't ours to close." The faceless figure rose higher. Its shoulders cleared the water now. Long arms rested calmly along the edge of the pit. Still no eyes, no mouth. Yet every person in the room felt its attention. It wasn't angry, it wasn't pleased. It simply existed. Like the mountain, like the river, older than judgment, older than mercy. The sage smoke thickened, the figure hesitated. Its smooth head slowly turned toward the burning herbs. For the first time, it stopped moving. Elijah saw it. More. The remaining bundles were thrown into the pit. White smoke poured downward. The black water rippled violently. The children cried out together, not screams of pain, cries of separation, as though someone were forcing them away from something they desperately wished to reach. Sarah looked one last time at Eleanor. "Will you visit us?" Eleanor collapsed to her knees. "I never stopped." Sarah smiled sadly. "I know." Then, one by one, the children stepped backward into the black water. None of them turned around. None broke eye contact. They simply descended until only their faces remained visible. Then only their eyes. Then nothing. The faceless figure was the last to disappear. Before sinking beneath the surface, it slowly raised one long hand, not in farewell, not in threat, almost in acknowledgement. The black water became perfectly still. The crack in the floor stopped widening. The underground bell fell silent. Elijah grabbed my shoulder. "This is our chance." Together we fled the schoolhouse. No one looked back. Behind us, the last church bell rang. Once, long, deep, and then, for the first time in 20 years, Blackwater Hollow became completely silent. None of us slept before dawn. We gathered inside Eleanor's cabin while the fire burned low, each man sitting in exhausted silence, listening for sounds that never came. No humming, no childish laughter, no gentle knocks upon the door. The quiet should have comforted us. Instead, it felt unfamiliar, as though the valley itself was holding its breath. Samuel's empty shotgun rested against the wall where Elijah had placed it. No one touched it. No one spoke his name. Out on the porch, the first gray light of morning slowly crept over Blackwater Hollow. When the sun finally climbed above the eastern ridge, Elijah unbolted the cabin door. He hesitated, then pulled it open. Warm morning air drifted inside. Bird song. The first birds I had heard since entering the valley. For several long seconds, none of us stepped outside. We simply listened. "It's gone." One of the mountain men whispered it more as a hope than a fact. Elijah wasn't convinced. "We don't know that." He looked toward me. "You wanted evidence." I nodded. "Come see it." We walked through the town together. Everything looked different beneath daylight. The abandoned buildings seemed ordinary again, weathered, forgotten, empty. The schoolhouse stood exactly where we had left it, but when we entered, I stopped in the doorway. The floor was whole, no crack, no pit, no black water. Rows of dusty desks sat quietly beneath broken windows. The toys remained scattered across the floor exactly as they had when I first arrived. There wasn't the slightest sign that 30 pale children had stood inside only hours earlier. The mountain men searched every corner. Nothing. No footprints, no water, no broken boards. It was as though the night itself had been erased. Only Eleanor stared silently at one desk near the front of the room. She bent down, picked something up, a ribbon, faded blue, no larger than my finger. She held it against her chest without saying a word. I remembered the little girl I'd first seen in the railroad town, the same pale blue dress, the same color ribbon tied into her hair. No one asked Eleanor where she thought it had come from. We already knew. Outside, Elijah led us to the cemetery. The fresh lilies were gone. The graves looked neglected once again. Yet one thing had changed. There was a new headstone. The stone hadn't been there the day before. I was certain of it. Its edges looked old, worn by decades of rain and winter frost, as though it had stood there for years. But I knew it hadn't. The inscription read, "Samuel Turner, 1846 to 1889, loving father." One of the mountain men staggered backward. "That's impossible." Elijah removed his hat. No one spoke. There was no freshly turned earth, no sign of burial, only an old grave that seemed to have always belonged there, as though Blackwater Hollow had quietly rewritten its own history. Eleanor knelt. She brushed moss from the top of the stone, then whispered, "I am sorry." The wind answered by stirring the pine trees above us. Nothing more. Before leaving town, I insisted on visiting the lake one final time. Elijah argued. The others refused to come. Only Eleanor agreed. We followed the narrow trail through the forest until the trees opened. The lake greeted us beneath the bright morning sun. It looked beautiful, crystal clear. Mountain flowers bloomed along its banks. Dragonflies skimmed peacefully across the surface. No faces waited beneath the water. No whispers drifted through the air. I almost laughed at myself. This peaceful place couldn't possibly be the same lake. Then I noticed something near the shore. A rag doll. The same one the little girl had dropped into the water. It rested on a smooth rock, dry, perfectly clean, as though someone had placed it there moments earlier. Eleanor slowly picked it up. She turned it over. Sewn into the inside of the dress was a name, Sarah. She closed her eyes. Her shoulders trembled once, only once. Then she carried the doll to the lake's edge. I've been waiting 20 years to say goodbye. Very gently, she laid the doll upon the water. Instead of sinking, it floated. The breeze carried it toward the center of the lake, farther, farther, until it became too small to see. Neither of us spoke. There was nothing left to say. By noon, we packed our horses. The mountain men refused to remain another night. Neither did I. As we reached the edge of the valley, I turned in my saddle for one last look. Blackwater Hollow lay silent beneath the mountains, the church, the school, the mine, the lake glimmering in the distance. It already looked unreal, like a dream fading after waking. Elijah rode beside me for several miles before finally speaking. "What will you write in your report?" I looked at the leather case holding my survey notes. What could I possibly write? That children climbed from underground rivers, that grief could be given a face, that something older than memory lived beneath the mountain. No government office would believe a word. "They'll close the mining district," I answered at last. "I'll recommend that no road be built." Elijah nodded. "They'll ask why." "I'll tell them the ground is unstable." He almost smiled. "For once," he said quietly, "that won't be a lie." Weeks later, I delivered my completed survey. Every measurement, every map, every recommendation. One document remained separate from the rest. My personal journal. The pages describing Blackwater Hollow, the lake, the children, the thing beneath the mountain. I read them one final time, then I fed every page into my fireplace. The flames consumed them within minutes. Some stories should never become instructions for another curious traveler. Officially, Blackwater Hollow was declared unsuitable for development because of unstable geology and repeated flooding. The road was cancelled, the valley slowly disappeared from public memory, exactly as it wanted, or so I believed, until 20 years later, a letter arrived with no return address. Inside was a single photograph, Blackwater Hollow, taken only days earlier. The abandoned church stood exactly as I remembered. So did the school. So did the lake. On the back of the photograph, someone had written 5 words in careful, childish handwriting. "We still love to play." I was 64 years old when that photograph arrived. My hands had grown slower. The scars across my knuckles had faded. The frontier I once knew had nearly vanished beneath railroads, telegraph wires, and growing towns. People spoke of progress as though the wilderness had finally been conquered. They were wrong. The wilderness had simply learned to wait. I never told anyone about the photograph. Not my neighbors, not the minister, not even the young surveyors who occasionally visited my home to ask about old trails through the mountains. I locked it inside the same wooden chest where I kept my compass, my field journals, and the government badge I'd carried through most of my life. Yet, I looked at it almost every night, searching for something I might have missed. Then, one winter evening, I finally saw it. The church, the schoolhouse, the empty street. At first glance, the picture appeared unchanged, but under a magnifying glass, a small figure stood in the doorway of the school. A little girl, barefoot, wearing a pale blue dress. She hadn't been there the first time I examined the photograph. I was certain of it. The longer I stared, the more details emerged. A second child stood beside the old well. Another watched from an upstairs window of the hotel. One little boy sat on the porch of the sheriff's office. None of them had appeared in the original print. Or perhaps I simply hadn't noticed. I put the photograph away. I never looked through the magnifying glass again. Years passed. Then another letter came. No envelope, no postage. Someone had slipped it beneath my front door during the night. Inside was a single sheet of paper, perfectly dry, perfectly clean. Only one sentence had been written across it. "Thank you for bringing their mother home." I read those words until sunrise because they made no sense. Eleanor had never gone with them. I had watched her leave Blackwater Hollow alive. She had walked beside us out of the valley. She had stayed in a small town farther south for several weeks before we parted ways. She had smiled. She had laughed once. She had even spoken about planting a garden. She was alive, wasn't she? The memory refused to leave me, so I searched old census records, church registries, county archives. I wanted to know what became of Eleanor after we separated. The answer never came. No marriage record, no death certificate, no property deed, nothing. It was as though she had vanished from the world the moment we rode out of Blackwater Hollow. At first, I blamed poor record keeping. Then I found Elijah's obituary. He had died peacefully at 83. The newspaper praised him for saving travelers lost in the mountains. Near the end of the article, one sentence caught my attention. He was the last known resident familiar with the abandoned Blackwater mining district. The last known resident, not the second to last. Not mentioning Eleanor, only Elijah. I folded the newspaper very carefully. My hands were shaking. The following spring, against every promise I had made myself, I returned. The journey took longer than it once had. The railroad reached closer to the mountains now. The old frontier towns had grown into proper communities. Most people I asked had never heard of Blackwater Hollow. Those who had stopped smiling the moment I spoke its name. An elderly storekeeper pointed toward the mountains without meeting my eyes. "I won't go. I've been there before." He stared at me strangely. "No," he whispered, "I don't think you have." His words followed me all the way into the valley. The trail remained, barely. Pines had swallowed most of it. The sheriff's office had collapsed. The church tower leaned dangerously. The mine entrance had disappeared behind a massive landslide. Nature had reclaimed nearly everything. Only the lake remained unchanged, still, silent, waiting. I walked slowly to the shore. No laughter greeted me. No pale faces waited beneath the surface. Only my own reflection. Older now, gray-haired, tired. I almost convinced myself that the nightmare had finally ended. Then I noticed fresh footprints in the mud, tiny, bare, leading away from the lake toward the forest. There was only one set. The footprints stopped beneath a tall pine. No child stood there, only a small wooden toy boat resting on a moss-covered stone. Hand-carved, old. I picked it up. The initials carved into its side stopped my heart. T.H. Thomas Hale. My initials. I had never owned such a toy. No one could have known to carve those letters, unless the boat wasn't waiting for me. It had always belonged to me. The thought was absurd, impossible, yet it settled into my mind with terrifying ease. A memory stirred, not clear enough to understand, only a feeling. Cold water around my ankles, children laughing, someone reaching for my hand. I squeezed my eyes shut until the feeling passed. When I opened them, the toy boat was gone. The stone was empty. The lake remained perfectly still. I left Blackwater Hollow without looking back. For the first time in my life, I abandoned the survey unfinished. If you're hearing this now, then these pages survived longer than I expected. Perhaps someone found them after I was gone. Perhaps curiosity won again. It usually does. I can't tell you what lives beneath Blackwater Hollow. I don't know whether it is a spirit, a place, or something so ancient that human language was never meant to describe it. I only know what I saw. Children who believed they were still playing. Parents who could not stop loving them. A valley where grief never found an ending. and water that remembered every name ever whispered into it. If you ever travel through forgotten mountains, if you discover an old mining town that doesn't appear on your map, if the air suddenly grows colder beside a lake so still it reflects every star, leave. Do not wait for proof. Do not follow laughter into the trees. Do not answer a child calling from the dark. And if someone knocks gently at your door after sunset, using the voice of someone you've loved and lost, keep the door closed, because whatever waits outside will never ask twice. It doesn't have to. Sooner or later, everyone grows lonely, and lonely children never stop looking for someone new to play with. Subscribe if you liked the story. That was part 4.